Today I'm very excited because I got to have a conversation with an amazing human being. Her name is Michel Duquet. She specializes in helping individuals that have had a spiritual awakening and guiding them through the process of growing both in their spirituality and in their human experience. So it was a great conversation. I learned a lot from it. I know you will learn a lot from it. If you have any questions, put them down below. I will be putting Michelle's links down below as well, and I highly recommend that you subscribe to her channel. She has a lot of great insights on purpose, on awakening, and pretty much everything from the awakening spiritual world all the way to the more practical, purposeful relationships type of topics. So check out this video. How's it going, Michelle? How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Good, good. So thanks for being on this interview. Really want to get your take on the whole awakening journey and your experience. I know you have a YouTube channel that is, getting very, very popular in regards to helping people who've waken up and guiding them. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
First, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Because your questions are so beautiful and you seem very connected. So have you had an awakening experience?
It's hard to say. I mean, I did have an experience where I felt like I detached from my identity or my ego, and it was completely unintentional. I just remember that I was going through a lot of depression and stress with my business at the time. And I just went on this very intensive journey of meditation, lucid dreaming, dream yoga type of stuff. And without me wanting to do it necessarily, I had this experience where I was almost like a third person. I was seeing through, it almost felt like I was seeing through my body, and I wasn't my body type of thing. It was like almost like a funnel. It lasted about 15, 20 minutes, but so I don't know I don't know if I have had one, or if it was a glimpse or something like that. I just know that in many ways life became a lot easier, and I felt a lot more at peace after having all these realizations of how I was living life, how conditioned I was, and realizing through experience that I wasn't my identity. So I don't know if that would count for that.
Yeah, there's definitely, it sounds like a before this event and an after this event. So I would, you were asking me about the awakening journey, and I think there's as many types of awakening as there are people.
Right.
And I think that whatever someone can handle is what happens. So now I really have no idea really why somehow the energies that be thought that I would be able to handle this huge event at 8 years old, but obviously I could. So there is a higher perspective, a higher, divine perspective overseeing all of this energetically, and it can understand at the energetic level where we're at energetically, what we can actually handle, because the amount of information is much, much bigger than what we can perceive.
Yeah.
So,
I remember seeing your interview, and you mentioned that an interview with Jamie, and I remember you mentioned that you shouldn't be alive right now, given the magnitude of the event that you had.
Yeah. Yeah. And I should have gone insane.
Mm.
And I think that's the marker for me. The fact that I didn't go insane. I remember one day I was meditating about 10 years ago. and I started having a major Kundalini energy go through me. And, you know, my body was just, and everything was, and I had no idea what this was, but I was like, oh, that was cool. And then I went to a movie. and
All
then,
right.
and then the person that I happened to be seeing a movie with was quite awakened, and he goes, well, yeah, of course, because you've handled, you know, this massive awakening when you're 8 years old. You didn't go insane.
Wow.
Therefore, you can handle many, many, many things because of that initial event.
Yep.
So I don't know, that was, you know, that was my experience. But then because it was so massive, to explain maybe a little bit to the viewers, I experienced source, infinite consciousness. I was source, and everything and nothing existed in that moment. It was infinity. I experienced infinity. We're not supposed to. We're supposed to be in this dimensional, you know, boundary where we can handle only so much. And so coming out of that, it then took me decades and decades and decades to embody it, to actually make it work in this three-dimensional world. So it's not that necessarily, okay, it happened and then I could just handle anything. Oh my God, no. The journey was long, very long. And the search for understanding what this was took me in so many different directions. And I ended up having, you know, to come back to me to understand it, because there was no books and nothing anywhere that explained what this was, because it was not blissful. It was the opposite of blissful. It was horrific, terrible. Yeah. And so there's many different things. So in my early 20s, I had, oh my God, this crazy 2 years of nervous breakdown, and all of the things that I knew completely broke down, and I was not able to sleep at night, and I was having incredible visions of all these energies. So it's as if I'm trying to make sense of it, but at the visceral level, at the experiential level. You know, and that was the one time that maybe my best friend from high school was a little bit worried about me. Because I would talk about everything, and
right.
It would just sound so scary. There was no internet at that time. There was no Google. Couldn't ask Dr. Google what was going on, and there was no books written about this specific experience. And I didn't understand that was kind of a darkness, you know, dark night of the soul.
Right.
I had different times, it kind of like an onion. It would peel away. And that was one of them. And there was many, many other. But what I feel, when I felt like, okay, it's time I share this with people, because what I'm sensing is the awakening sometimes for many is too much. Even though it is divinely guided and there is an energetic overseer that knows how to match the experience to the person.
If you're ready.
It's what becomes overwhelming is not the experience itself, it's coming back to this earthly experience.
Interesting.
That's
so
the hard part.
I think that the biggest thing that I wanted to ask you, I mean, I have friends and I've known of people that have had the awakening at a later stage. So I know for you, it was a matter of building boundaries from coming and being, having this experience at 8 years old and having to build boundaries around normal life. For other people that are seeking a spiritual journey, they're more or less trying to figure out how their new spirituality fits with their life, as opposed to how their life fits with their spirituality. I think that was the case for you. What would you say is, you know, your advice for people that are trying to, I guess, get a feel for making sense of life, as well as this new awakening that they perhaps had recently, or something like that?
Yeah, there is. It's kind of how to walk that solitary line. It's a matter of becoming comfortable with feeling solitary in what is going on. And it's the same, it's exactly the same for, I'll give you a day-to-day hardcore kind of example. An alcoholic.
Right.
Quits drinking and becomes sober. All those friends he drank with, they're not going to be hanging around him anymore. So there's that possibility. But then there's another possibility. You're not going to lose your family. Your family's going to be still with you and loving you. But what happens is, because you're changing, they're going to be confronted with the fact that they have to change in relationship to you, and they're not ready to change. They're like, wait a second. You used to always say yes to everything, and now you're saying no?
Interesting.
So it's kind of the same for someone who has a major heightened understanding of all that is involved, much more than what we see, much more than this concrete world. And then everyone around them is going to try to remind them, no, that's not who you are. This is who you are. And the solitary part, the one that you develop in meditation, the one that you develop in the thoughts that you have with yourself, are the ones that develop your ability to love them and unconditionally see that they're going through their own journey because you're changing. And so the heart is opening up as you awaken, and it makes you, it's a new journey where you learn to love more unconditionally as well. And as you're confronted with other people trying to remind you who you are, you can love yourself more in this change, have this patience with yourself, and at the same time, love others for the difficulty that they're going through in relation to you. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow. So for you, I know it was a very long journey from 8 years old until really until now, really.
Yeah.
How would you define the stages that you went through in regards to figuring out what happened to you at 8 years old?
God, I have no idea. Stages. I just lived my life.
Yeah.
I always marched to the beat of my own drum.
Okay.
So that was ingrained. That was definitely ingrained. No one was going to tell me what to do. Unfortunately, it made me a little stubborn. But it also, I was convinced that I would not work in an office and I would not work in the corporate world.
Right.
I would, very early on, I knew I was going to be an actress, and I followed my heart and I followed my dream. And, my family just went along with it and were very, very supportive. Even at one point, funny because, as tough as my dad was with me, I remember he apologized to me one day. He goes, "You know what? I owe you an apology. I was very smug when you said you wanted to get into acting and all of that." And he goes, "You showed me wrong." I was so kind of, it helped me be open to what my heart wanted at a very early age.
Right.
The stages of this, I guess, were very slow and very methodical, and it was perhaps, well, let me see if I can figure it out. Let me see, just on the fly, stages.
Yeah.
Okay, first, the stage is, oh my God, I have a huge destiny here.
Wow.
I should have died and I didn't. Okay. Then immediate, oh, I must shut this down. Denial. Complete denial. Hey, maybe it's the 7 stages of death. Ellen Kubler-Ross. Ha! I think I just answered my own question. Denial, bargaining, anger, resentment, all these different stages. At the end, the stage is acceptance.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, the end stage, you have to go through all of the stages. And I think that's probably what I did. And in the end was acceptance, when I decided to really come out of the spiritual closet to everyone, writing a book about my experiences, understanding that sense of destiny that I felt at the very first event, very first awakening was about to unfold, and that I'd spent my life learning about it so that I could then, be there for others who are going through it, but not be there for others in a let's share our experiences kind of way. Be there for others as a very, very grounded and like a rock, like, hold my hand here. Okay, you're going to be okay. I promise you. But this is what you have to do in order to live in this 3-dimensional world with this experience. Because I'm a believer in both. I want people to understand that when you have the spiritual awakening, it is to melt it into your human life. And when that happens, boy, the evolution becomes so fast, because everything that's in our human life and our human existence is a teacher to our soul.
This is very fascinating. Why do you think human growth is so important to the soul and to what we can't see?
So I can only theorize. I am still quite limited in what I can know, because I am in my body. So I've theorized that we can only know so much. First of all, we can know about the love and know about the potential for the shadow. And so my experience was of the infinity was horrifically terrorizing. And my theory is that it would teach me the power of source. And what I experienced is that source is both. Now, this is kind of unpopular, I think, in because, we're all one, God is love, source is love. And actually what I experienced is that source is both and anything and everything. And that, again, this is just a theory, because I am limited in my knowledge. The sense I'm getting is that the universe is now at a point, the entire universe, the entire energy of absolutely everything is at a point where we can move everything more towards a love energy than a destructive energy. And this, I think, is propelling all of us towards this evolution. We are in this wave of what's going on universally. But having said that, that has been a really good question that I've had my whole life. Okay, so why? What is this? What is driving me to have this soul evolution? And there are a lot of answers to that. People have given answers to that. I can't give an answer to that.
Sure.
Until I transition, until I am fully in the big other infinite realms, I can't really answer that with that
absolute certainty.
Yeah, no. No. That's just no. Can't do that.
No, that makes sense. But so in regards to what I know that you're trying to help people that have had this awakening. What about for people that perhaps have reached a certain maturity in their life as a human, and they haven't yet glimpsed into this other side? What would you say in regards to that? Is there a process? Is there a journey for that, or is it more of a choice from the soul?
Yeah, you have to seek it.
Mm,
It has to come from a personal curiosity and seeking and questioning. Some people are not here to question, why am I here? What is this all about? They're here to fully experience what they are experiencing, and that is of equal value and equal energy as to what I'm experiencing and you're experiencing. There is no higher echelon.
mm,
Every experience is of complete equal value. So, however, if someone find themselves in conversation with me or thinking about things differently and asking me questions, they're seeking.
right.
If someone rolls their eyes and goes like, oh God, what are you talking about? Yeah, okay, she's a little weird.
You've never had that happen.
Oh no, I've never had that happen. Well, then you know that they're not, they're not interested yet, but who knows? You never know. You never know. What if their loved one transitions and passes on, and the event that they have, the confusion that they feel, the anger that they feel, all of the stuff that they go through, then they may become a seeker and they may seek something
Right.
more of an understanding.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think for me, I think what jolted me out of, I was already interested in a lot of this, but my grandpa passed away at one point, and I felt him, as well as a close friend of mine, maybe within a 6-month period, I felt him passing. And for me, that was a big sign that I was missing a lot of things that I wasn't necessarily seeing. I was thinking, when that time comes for me, or when someone else passes, am I going to be ready? Am I really just living a lie here with the business that I was running, just being completely busy and enrolled completely in my everyday life? And for me, that was I think what jolted me back into seeking, into figuring out if I was missing something. And for me, again, it happened through meditation, and it happened through dreams, and a thought that kept reoccurring in my head. I don't know if this triggered it when you asked me that question, but it had to do with the thought of letting my identity pass or die. Because at that point, I was very miserable with stress, depression, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So you bring up a really good point, that I live every day in preparation for my transition.
Mm,
Because I experienced, I had a near-death experience. So and that, because I should have died, I was, source in that event. But then I had another experience where I had a near-death experience in 2013. And that's what propelled me to write the book and go forward with all of this. And but I was not sick. I was nowhere near death. And I saw that the way I'd been living my life was really in preparation to have a higher next dimension. So as my energetic self, when I transition, everything that I've done in this life will help me have the highest possible experience in the energetic realms. So yeah, there is that sense of preparation for the transition, and we can prepare a lot in our life now. And you know, I have had some all other experiences where I experienced a life review, and let me tell you, a life
Yeah,
review is
I'm
very tough.
curious.
Oh, it's a tough thing to go through. Everything that you have experienced, every single experience you've had in life, and interchange you've had with someone, if you've judged someone, if you mistreated someone, you will feel what they feel, but magnified 1,000 times. So you come back from that really wanting to be kind. Really motivated
Wow.
to be very kind. It happens very fast, but we all go, apparently, I experienced it, but I don't know. I'm assuming everybody goes through that. It was a very multidimensional experience. And so
Did
it
it
all,
just happen spontaneously?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And spontaneously, in fact, I was in a pet store. But that's kind of my
You know,
life.
it's funny that you say these things and then you went to the movies right after
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
Kundalini thing.
know.
What happened? My experience happened at the men's bathroom after watching a movie.
That's amazing. See, you never know. So this near-death experience that I came back from it really understanding at the profound level that what we call death and transition is literally, it's right here. It's not tomorrow. It's not in 100 years. It's literally right here. There's a little tiny, very thin wall right here, and it opens up and you're dead, and it closes up and you're alive. So it's not something in the future. It's something very, very, very present. At every single moment, there's a veil and you're crossing into the other side, or no, you're staying. So,
Wow.
you know, it can, these experiences, this multidimensional experiences, these visions, these psychic experience, any of that can happen anytime, anywhere, because the veil is just right here.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard that. Well, that being described that way, as a veil that is right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a gift of that near-death experience. That's what I came back with, carrying that, going, wow, I didn't realize it was like so close.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So,
I hope that people don't mind this talk about transitioning, and the word death has a very scary energy. So that's why I use the word transition. It's maybe a softer word, kind of, you know, it's just like a bridge. But yeah, I understand how this 3D world is so dense that the thought of leaving it, and the thought of our loved ones leaving it, is a trauma. Actually, it's very traumatic, and can be very, very painful.
yeah, no, absolutely. So going back to the experience that you mentioned when you were 8 years old, for you, it was not all like butterflies and rainbows type of feeling. It
No.
was horrific, you said. So how do you reconcile the two? Like, it's just source is either or?
I see source and feel source as something very, very profoundly loving and benevolent. But that is because that's where I am. No, let's see. Energetically, I am vibrating not in the destructive energy. I'm vibrating in the evolutionary energy. I'm vibrating in the energy that wants to evolve. I want to be unconditionally loving. I understand I'm failing because I'm a human being, and I will fail for the rest of my life. I will probably, never be able to fully love unconditionally and be blissful and all of that. And I know, because, I am still, I'm here. I'm on this planet, and I have such heavy programming from my childhood that, like I was talking about the onion peel before, I'm still peeling the onion and stuff still comes up. I'm like, oh, okay. That again. Yeah, I got to deal with that. Yeah.
Knowing all this, having experienced everything that you've experienced, being more compassionate in regards to how you are being, as a human here on the planet, how are you more compassionate with yourself?
Yeah, I set that as an intention all the time. I work at it very hard, and I have these little catchphrases. I made a video called something hack, spiritual hack, and basically it's just a phrase I say to myself, and if I catch myself judging myself or putting myself down or pressuring myself, I'll just say, and I love myself anyway. And I love myself anyway. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of sets the tone. I do practice, and it's I'm lucky in that, it's going to sound weird that I say this. I'm lucky in that I had to struggle with addiction, and I had to struggle with eating disorders. And I was a model in New York, and I was severely anorexic. And I once read in a book or saw somewhere that anorexia is extreme self-hatred. And so when I was on my journey of recovery and healing from all of these things, I had to go through a real process of healing, a real process of learning how to love myself. And so I feel that I'm blessed by having had those addiction problems and those eating disorders, because I was able to walk that journey towards self-love in a way that was truly healing.
Right.
So self-love involves true healing and actually embracing all of the things that are painful. You can't get to self-love without healing.
Amen.
Yeah. So I think that process of having to heal all the things that made me become an addict and have all these eating disorders was my journey.
Wow. What kind of things did you do to begin that process, and what things impacted your healing the most?
So there is this thing of acceptance. So a feeling comes up. And so there's this saying, you're only as sick as your secrets. So a feeling comes up and you want to cover it up and you want to repress it and you want to not deal with it. That's a secret. Wow. And I wanted to heal. I really, really wanted to commit to healing. I was fully committed to healing. So a feeling would come up and I would embrace it. If it was super uncomfortable, I was in therapy, so I would talk to my therapist about it. I am still in a 12-step program, talk to my sponsor. I would write about it, pray about it, meditate. Not meditate to escape the feeling, but meditate to embrace the feeling and to help me accept the beauty of the feeling. Because each feeling that comes up is a beautiful gift for us to learn from. And the heart opens up every little bit, just a little bit at a time. And as we embrace these feelings that come up, because we're trying to heal and we're committed to healing,
right.
Our heart opens up a little bit more and we love ourselves just a little bit more. And then we love others a little bit more because we love ourselves more.
Yeah, absolutely. So taking things from the spiritual into personal and human growth. Um, I'm curious about your take on a person's identity and shifting it in a way where we fall in love with that identity, where we fall in love with the person that we're being. The healing involves some of that, and also what your take in general about identity and choosing one that you can fall in love with.
Yeah, the identity is a really cool thing, and I catch myself all the time going. I'll be looking at my fingers, going, "Oh God, this is so weird." So weird. I
do the same thing.
You do?
No, I don't know.
Okay, I'm a soul in this body going, God, this is so weird. Whose hand is this?
Yeah.
And then I'll be looking at the videos that I made of myself. I'm going, who is that? I do have this kind of dichotomy where, yeah, I'm separate, but I also understand the importance of this identity. So this personality, this, I don't know, just even how we come across, how we speak, how we look. I understand the importance of using that to connect with others. So, I was thinking I would take a picture of the setup that I have. You need a light, you need a microphone, you need a computer. There's all these things that are set to enter into the communication realm. And, you could think of that as the identity.
Right.
It can be a little freaky when you start having these separation from your identity, right? Mm-hmm. So people do go through that. Like, I don't know who I am anymore. This is very scary. And it can be a scary moment where you lose your identity. And it can take a lot of time, take a year where you're kind of floating, pretending, still acting a certain way, but inside it feels not right. Feels wrong.
What do you think could potentially trigger that? Could it be trauma, loss, losing your job, losing a loved one? Is it potentially
be any of those, on human terms? I was more talking about the spiritual awakening.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So there is that sense of loss of everything that we know. But yeah, it can happen. So when I was writing my book, I went through, so every day from 8 a.m. till 11, I would enter into this zone where I was in touch with some such beautiful vibrational energies and kind of writing what was coming through. And then the next day I would then put my little writer hat on and edit everything. And, and I would often think after the 3 hours going, oh, what I wrote is crap. Wait till tomorrow. And then I would read it the next day going, oh my God, I wrote that?
Wow.
So I would do that. And what happened, I did that for 2 years, 2 or 3 years, took a long time. My acting career took a nosedive. Whoa. It was no money coming in.
Right.
And I was living on my savings. And I was really feeling that probably human loss of identity, human loss of who am I now? What is happening? Okay, it's great. I'm committed to what I call my soul mission, why I came here. But why am I not being supported with some kind of income? And that was part of the healing process for me. That was part of my spiritual path, and to absolutely surrender completely to the divine timing and divine forces and trust, and go through that. I would wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m, panic stricken as to having to cash more of my savings in order to, in order so I could eat, you know, and living on very, very, very minimal. But I was spending, you know, about $25,000 a year of my savings, which is very scary.
Yeah.
So that panic that I would wake up in the middle of the night would be a healing process. So it was energetically something that was coming up for me to love and heal.
Interesting.
It was a necessary process. And so you were talking, I'm going back to what you asked me earlier about falling in love. How do you fall in love with this identity? Well, that was part of the process. I was falling in love with life itself.
Wow.
And the life force that keeps me alive. Falling in love with the surrender process and falling in love with this divine plan that I was following with blind trust. But in the meantime, I was also falling in love with all of what it means to be human.
Wow.
So in a sense, I wasn't necessarily falling in love with myself, but falling in love with my humanity and humanity with every single person on this planet.
Wow, I love that. Wow. How do you, I don't know, from everything you've talked about, it seems that surrender, acceptance has been something you've, you know, embodied and practiced for such a long time. What initially, what reminds you that this is potentially a situation where you might be resisting like stress or anxiety and that kind of stuff? And what do you do to surrender?
Yeah, good question. Okay. Well, you know, life always happens.
Yeah.
I just renovated both bathrooms in my house and the whole downstairs hallway. Well, I was really not happy about all of the problems I was having in the bathrooms. And I was, you know, trying to, it's like plug one hole, something else happens, plug this, plug that. And it became so overwhelming that I realized I'm resisting the inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And it was causing me great anxiety. And I couldn't, for example, the toilet upstairs, I couldn't use anymore. So I had to go all the way downstairs to go to the bathroom and come all the way down upstairs. There was rust everywhere. Like things were cracked. It was, and all of that was that I wouldn't have to spend the money
Yeah, of course.
on renovating the bathrooms. And when I realized the incredible stress and resistance that I was doing, I was not trusting. I was not trusting that I would be taken care of. I was not embracing and accepting and loving what is. Like, I was not.
Wow.
I was just, the debates in my head were like, well, I can't afford this. Well, I don't unbelievable.
Wow.
And once I sent a text to my sister. This was the beginning of everything. I sent a text. My sister's an interior designer, so hello. So I sent her a text and I said, what might the budget be for me to have a new bathroom? Would this be enough? So I made a certain number. And then she came back and she goes, short answer, no. Right. So she was my reality check saying, okay, it's about fully surrendering. It's going to be way more than I think it's going to be, way more than I think I can afford. And it has to be done. There's no more. That's it. It has to be done. And so while I'm doing the upstairs bathroom, let's do the downstairs bathroom, let's do the hallway. And what I did is I refinanced. And this beautiful man at the end of the phone line at the bank, I said, so I'm planning on renovating both bathrooms and the hallway with this refinancing. Is that okay? And he laughed and he goes, that's why it's there. Of course. Go ahead. It's for you. I went, okay. It took, within 5 days,
Oh,
the
wow.
contractor was here, the bathtub was here, everything was just within 3 weeks.
That's amazing.
So that's just an example of my resistance. So it can show up in any way. It could be resistance to, okay, let's see, my dog. If something happens to my dog, resistance to accepting that this is happening.
Yeah.
Well, it is happening. So the quicker I surrender and accept to the fact that, so she's an older dog. She's now, I'd say 80% deaf. And at first I was in denial about it and I didn't want to accept it.
Right.
And then once I accepted it, now we have lots of fun together. It's like she'll bark outside and I'll come along and I'll bark along with her at a high pitch. She can hear me and we have fun. We just bark, 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 bark. And she can hear me and she looks at me like, I can hear you. There's, I mean, these are just kind of, I think both those examples are pretty silly. They're not big anxiety-ridden kind of examples, but
it makes sense.
Yeah, it's like everyday kind of stuff that people can relate to more than the big events that maybe not everybody goes through.
Right. Yeah. About your book, what does it include and why you wanted to write it?
So it includes 4 basic experiences that I had and what they mean to the awakening journey of whoever's reading it. And so, for example, one of the chapters is called Becoming Conscious. And I take it through the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual consciousness. And I take an example of an extreme bout of eczema that I had, that there was no cream or anything I could take. And I had open sores all over the knee to the ankle for 4 months. So as I was starting to write this chapter, that started to happen. And I went, oh, so I'm supposed to live through this and write through this experience so that people will understand all of the different levels of healing that needs to happen in order to become fully conscious.
Wow.
Or spiritually conscious. And so that was kind of one of the chapters. And then another chapter was an experience. I had an out-of-body experience, astral projection experience. I don't know, after my main event, I had 2 years of astral projection and some very, very distinct lessons that my energetic beings would teach me.
Yeah.
And one of them was an experience of reincarnation. So I share the full experience in the chapter, and then I explain how reincarnation fits into that and how our programming fits into that and why this particular out-of-body astral projection experience happen and how it can help us in our everyday life by understanding our programming and why it's important that we actually have programming.
Right.
To then overcome. So yeah, and I do speak in the book is the one place where I reveal my sacred near-death experience. I have not shared that on videos and anywhere because it is very, very sacred. And it's very precious, and it's for a book, not so much for video. It's for someone's private reading when they're in that moment of space where they're receiving it.
That's awesome.
At the end of the book, one of the second last chapters is about the action steps we need to take too.
Oh, well, in regards to
this awakening process, that we do have a lot of action steps to take in order to fully heal
Right.
I don't know if we can ever fully heal. To heal as best as we can. So that I find is really important as well. It's not all about, this awakening and feeling this and going through it. It's our active part as well.
You mentioned, I think when we talked last about, the spirit guides and the different energy individuals that taught you. I wanted to see if you can share just a little bit about what were some of the major lessons in regards to perhaps the boundaries coming from the awakening, so on and so on.
Well, the major lesson took a lifetime to learn, which is the importance of being a human being.
Wow.
And that is the most important thing, and why we came here. We came here to be fully human beings and to learn from that. I'd say the major lesson is that it's a little bit turned around. We think that we will seek a highly blissful spiritual experience and awakening, and that will transform us and give us the blissful life that we want. And that's not why we're here. We're here to it's the reverse. We're here to be fully in our bodies, to fully experience this human experience and combine it with the soul.
Wow.
And so, think of the soul, our eyes, right? So the soul is right here. You see, everything that we see is our soul watching. So, okay, so let me see if I can make a little drawing. So I'm seeing here, but right here is this massive, massive energy, massive, soulful, energetic realm. And it is embracing and watching everything that we see on this three-dimensional plane and everything that we feel and learn in this body, because that's why we came here. We came here to view everything from our soulful perspective.
Wow.
In our body. And here's another crazy thing that is very hard to understand, is that there is only ever one consciousness. And so your soul looking through your eyes and that massive consciousness behind you and energetic realm behind you, with you, connected to you, is source, and mine is source. So all of us are just here to serve source, so source can experience itself.
All right.
Which is it's a strange thing to think about. I still don't quite understand why source split from itself and decided it needed to experience itself. I don't have that answer. That is what I experienced, though, when I had my major initiation event.
That's incredible. I think especially the first lesson that you just mentioned. When I heard it from you on the first chat that we had, really made sense in terms of a lot of the resistance that I was having to life and to, okay, I want to seek this spiritual awakening path, but it completely contradicts some of the other things in my mind, at least at the time. And more, whether it's from you in this very clear message, or even some business courses that I'm taking, they're very aligned, in regards to the growth and the maturity as a human, and spirituality, and having, as you say, these initiations.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. Well, that's, I think, all the questions that I had. I'm going to put down your channel down here below in this video, your website. Yeah, anything else if people wanted to get in touch with you?
Uh, yes. So I have a blog, and I'll give you the information, the connection.
Sure.
And on the blog, there's all kinds of different information, but there is a section on energy readings, and there you have my email and what is involved if you want an energy reading. And I also am now, offering publicly what I call soul guidance, because
Nice.
yeah, so I can coach and guide, like if people come in and they have this human thing that's going on, I can help them see their soul's perspective on it and have like a bigger picture of what's really going on and kind of guide them. So I read energetically where they are at and guide them into the direction that they want to go in.
Wow. And I mean, I have seen some of your energy readings, and wow. Uh, I think the very first thing that I mentioned to you when we first started chatting is like, wow, I get a sense, a very warm energy. There's a different sense about you when you, especially when you get into that state, and the type of information and guidance that you provide is incredibly simple but profound. From what I could see, even I know in one of your videos you were answering, I think, a question regarding to purpose, and the way that you put it was incredible. So yeah, it makes sense that you will be doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and also I have to say it's not me doing it. It's
Mm,
what I do is I work at maintaining a certain energy level of openness. I just did the monthly energy reading for November. It'll be published tomorrow, 2 p.m. And
nice.
um, I never have. I read what I wrote, but it's like that's not me. That is
Mm,
not me. I'm, and I don't. I purposely don't use the word channel. I
right.
don't. I don't download. I don't use that word. It's not like that. It's just something vibrates and kind of okay, and then it's a matter of not censoring what comes up, and I write it and then I read it, and my interpretation of it is through all of my life experience and my
Right.
energetic experience. So I do interpret what I get, but I always want people to get that it's not me. Anybody can do that at any time on the certain evolutionary kind of track if they want to, but yeah, it's not me, and that gives me kind of gets me off the hook, so I can still be human.
I see. I knew you were doing
Yeah.
that. No, thanks again so much for the interview, and yeah, I'll go ahead and upload it to the YouTube channel, and I'll send it to you as well if you
Great.
want to upload it to yours.
I'd love to.
And I think that's everything.